terms of the challenge you faced play calling, I mean, going against Ohio State, you're promising to play two quarterbacks. They're both young. What are the challenges of that? How do you think you did personally when you rewatched it and kind of got a look at how the game flowed? I mean, what were your kind of thoughts on your play calling?
First thing, just from a quarterback standpoint, I thought, both of them did the most important thing, that was avoid catastrophic error. Now, we had some pre-snap error. I think both of them had one apiece that, we had a 3rd down and 1 issue where we missed a shift in a trade, which caused a false start. We had another issue pre-snap, but really other than those two things, they played pretty clean, and so that's the biggest thing is they there was no catastrophic error. From a play calling standpoint, going into the game, the most important thing was we wanted to stay in the fight as long as possible, and so it was it was slow, it was going to be a grind. From an analytics standpoint, we were going to go for a bunch of 4th downs, so that's, some of the 3rd down decision makings to get us to a 4th and 2, get us to a 4th and 3. And so we were exactly where we wanted to be going into half. It was a one-possession game. That's exactly where we wanted to be. If you look at the history of Indiana and Ohio State, the second quarter is when there's been a big lift, and Coach Deal, who is always in our building, always around, I think it was in the last 4 or 5 years, it was like 86-15 or 86-14 if you add the totality of the second quarters, and so defense is playing great, and the whole, we just want to keep staying in the fight as long as possible. Now where some decisions I regret, is early in the second half. We had momentum, we got a big stop. I think the first 3rd down, backed up, we call quarterback draw. We kind of have what we want, don't really hit it right. And then the next 3rd down, we throw a ball and we have a miscommunication between quarterback and a wideout. But again, that's coaching. That's not on them. We got to make sure that they understand the plan and that they're doing right. So, and then really after that, they score again, game starts to get away. And so, but in the first half, I thought we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. And now it's just we got to improve, we got to be better. And from an improvement standpoint, I know people look at the rushing yards and the statistics, but just how much better or how much better our offensive line was. The quarterback got hit twice the whole day, and so, and then the sack that we had, really that's more quarterback error than anything else, and so thought those guys really improved. We took care of the football, and we just got to keep getting better every week.
What were the analytics you leaned on analytics in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, just, when your 4th down decision making, the same analytics that everyone in the world is, you hear about it so much, but, we're going to be really aggressive, and a great example is Philadelphia. They played in the Super Bowl a year ago. They ran the ball on 3rd down more than any team in the NFL, and why? Because they want to play more 4th downs than anybody in the NFL, and so your yard markers, when that's going to transpire, those change each week, but, we're going to be aggressive.
When you're actively still evaluating 2 quarterbacks going into a season, obviously, you had, Brendan started last week, Taven's starting this week. Just does it get tricky to kind of evaluate them when, the game film you're going to have on them? You have, game 1 against, a top 5 FBS team, and then game 2, you're seeing them just against a different level of opponent in FCS school. Does that make it a little trickier to evaluate them?
No, I mean, I think they're both good laboratories. I think Taven played 29, Brennan played 28. Maybe it's vice versa, I'm not sure, but they both pretty much played the exact same amount of plays. Different situations in the game. There's a good mix of that. The biggest thing for us is both of them had really good fall games. They're both really good football players. It would not surprise me down the line if both of them don't have a chance to play in the NFL someday. Okay, I know that's heaping an amount of praise that they may not live up to, but they're both really talented. It just so happens we have them both at the same time. They're the same age, and so both of them had great fall camps. Both of them were around 70% on the hands through fall camp, didn't really turn the ball over, and they both earned the right to have the opportunity to play. That and the fact that they're so young, you really don't know until the lights go on, and we've all seen guys that get better. We've all seen guys that kind of become a shell of who they are. And I don't think either one of them did that, and so we've got, another game to look at, and then we'll just keep evaluating as we go.
Yeah, Coach, just on the 2 quarterbacks, take us through each one. What are 2 or 3 things that would really help each one take key steps to maybe become the guy moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, with Taven, he's, for a tall, long kid, he's a way better foot athlete than you expect him to be. He takes a great deal of pride in his work. He puts a lot of internal pressure on himself, which can be good and can be bad. And he can distribute and, he can spin the football, and the thing about Brennan is they're very similar. Brennan can hit spots. Brennan can distribute the football. He's a big physical runner. When we took Brennan out of high school, it was after the first signing day, after I had gotten hired. The majority of quarterbacks in America are signed somewhere else. And the reason that we took him was because he was a big physical runner. And that's what you saw on his tape. You really didn't know about the distribution skills. And then we got a chance to see him live, and we felt much better about that. But, they're very, very, very similar. And the differences aren't in their learning ability. They're both really smart. They both retain information well. They both are composed. There's just subtle personality nuances, but physically they're very, very similar, which helps, because it's not like you have to have two distinct plans, which is hard.
I guess a personnel question, but at least for some of the game, if not, I don't know, it keeps doing it to me, forgive me. If not all the game, we saw Khalil at right tackle and Matt Bedford kicked inside to guard. Was that maybe because of some of the option stuff? Was it by design because of Matt coming back from injury? Was it Ohio State? Just kind of what led to maybe flipping those guys from where they've played in the past?
No, with Coach Bostad, those guys, they end up playing a lot of spots, and not necessarily because, it helps them learn anymore. It's just, the amount of repetition and time on task. At some point, somebody's got to get a breather. Somebody's got to kick in. Somebody's got to kick out. There's a lot of reps in a practice setting. And about midway through fall camp, that transition kind of transpired. And I think some of that had to do with also, with Max Longman being out for the last week or so of fall camp. And so it's just trying to get the best five on the field, and Matt's a class act. That's the one thing that I think it's important that everybody understands about Matt Bedford is just how all in he is about Indiana. You're talking about a guy that's got NFL potential that you asked to move to guard a week and a half before the season, knowing he's been a tackle his whole life. He said, yeah, I'm good. Let's go. And so he's a special kid, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to help us be the best that we can be.
I think Tom on Saturday after the game said that you guys were a little bit more conservative than you wanted to be, maybe even in some of the situations that you were in. Is that partly quarterback related and something that would gradually increase as the quarterbacks become more comfortable in the offense, or is that just more situational?
Both. I think, I told Tom when we walked off the field, number one goal is stay in the fight. We want to make it a 60-minute game. And especially with kind of the history of this rivalry and how it's transpired. And we accomplished that, but we played pitter-pat too long. I played pitter-pat too long. At some point you got to go be aggressive, And really the biggest thing, if you take 3 downs out of the game, if we execute a little bit better on the 4th and 2, we have the ball down there tight, you're probably going into halftime, it's 10-7. Maybe we have a lead or it's 7-6 and it's a 1-point game. Had a little bit of an execution deal there that we can clean up. And then the 2 third downs, to start the second half. We've got what we want. We're in a good spot. We don't do the job.
On Saturday, we heard that rhythm was kind of challenging with the kind of rotation you all had under center. Is there any concern from your, vantage point about maybe seeing an representative sample kind of with that rhythm maybe altering play?
None.
Hey, Walt, with Bradley Archer, what are you seeing from him? What's his ceiling? What do you hope to see from him?
He's been a wonderful addition. He's big, he's strong, really, really, really smart, does a great job in line. Catches the ball well, in terms of the role that he was asked to do on Saturday. That was go get in there with the anger eight and mix it up and block those really good defensive ends. But he has been a great addition for us. Great kid, doesn't say a whole lot, shows up, works hard every day, knows what to do.
Coach, so you mentioned Bradley there. I think I'm looking at it right. I don't think any of your tight ends on your offense finished the game with reception. I might be remembering wrong, but I think one pass went towards Aaron but wasn't completed. Is that a hope of yours that as the season goes and as your offense as the quarterbacks improve?
Yeah, I think the
tight ends
biggest thing for us is just going to be, when do the opportunities present themselves? How much do we need them in pass protection? And just as those guys continue to develop, because it still is a young room. You got a bunch of young guys, between Bomba's still young, Steiny's still young, Brody Foley's still young. Bradley's an older guy that's played some ball. But really, it's just whatever the game plan allows us to do with those guys.
Yeah, just when you think about Jalen Lucas and kind of how you're getting him the ball, I guess I know I recognize you're playing a really talented defense, but when you looked back, did you like kind of the ways you were using him, or did you feel that there were ways that you could maybe maximize what he can do?
No, I mean, he had, between special teams and offense, he had 11 or 12 touches in the first half between special teams and offense. We want to try to keep him around 20. Then we lost him to cramps for 2 or 3 drives there in the second half. And so he was going to be on pace for 15, 18, and again, from a game plan standpoint, number one against those guys, you got to protect the passer, and so that means the ball's got to come out. It's got to be a quick game, really push the ball down the field, with him. Got to be a little careful, but it's going to be work every week to find a way to get him the ball.
I guess sort of a philosophical question. You've talked about how your offense, the way it operates, it can run as easily as it can pass, but you guys obviously threw it a lot more than you ran it in terms of where you lined up in the Big Ten last year. As you maybe sort of shift some of your thinking in the offseason, shift some of your thinking in the preseason, and start putting together maybe some more run-oriented packages, were there pieces of your past as a coach, coaches you'd worked with in the past, head coaches you've worked with in the past that you maybe leaned on a little bit in just sort of maybe tweaking some of that stuff?
I wouldn't necessarily say coaches that I've leaned on and worked with in the past. Now, I played for Larry Fedora, coached with Larry Fedora at Southern Miss in North Carolina. Larry was known as a spread one back guy, but at the same time, he's also the offense coordinator at Air Force at one point. So we, even at Southern Miss and even North Carolina, especially when we had Marquise Williams, who kind of came right before Mitch Trubisky. When I was at Arkansas State, there was always an option element, and if anything else, just to eliminate pressure, and make things simpler, because when you run the option, if that is a part of the plan, you're really going to limit the defense. They're always going to have somebody inside and outside the quarterback and somebody for the pitch. What that does is it creates a back-end structure the majority of the time that's much simpler to see in the throw game. So hopefully that more than anything else will alleviate and make some things easier on those young quarterbacks.